Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Norbert coming to you from London, just one day after the conclusion of the first ever MCP World Team Championship. I am thrilled to be here tonight as your host and moderator because I won't be doing much of the talking tonight as opposed to most nights because we're not streaming a live game, and instead we are talking to the winners of the MCP First World Team Championship. I'm going to spoil it for everybody straight away. It was Team Sweden, Good with Hammers, who took it away. And we have our very own co-host, but tonight the subject of the interview instead, the Huggy Bear. Hello, Huggy.
Hello, Norbert. And what a weekend.
What a weekend. We're going to dive right into it. So you're the captain on the team. However, of the 5 people, we were good enough to have Anders from your team here as well. Say hello, Anders.
Hello, everyone.
Great to have you here to give us the player's perspective because otherwise Huggy Bear's head's going to be too big to fit into the screen.
Yes. You're going to be in trouble now, Norbert.
And we, of course, have as well on the top right of the screen the head organizer and TO judge and all-around epic legend, Gil Serepi. Hello, Gil.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
You come closer to that microphone, my friend, because we can, it's cutting out again.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. And we've had you on the show as a co-host when Huggy Bear couldn't make it, and we've also streamed some of your games, but this is a very different type of stream because we're going to be hearing all about what it takes to put on a World Team Championship for you.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Great. Okay, so let's fill everybody in really quick. So it was this past weekend, so October 21st and 22nd, that the first World Team Championship took place. It was being held in Copenhagen and literally in a hotel right across the street from the Copenhagen airport. So super convenient, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We were 32 teams, and each team is 5 players. And there's you cannot repeat characters across the team, but you are allowed to repeat crises and tactics cards.
You are allowed to repeat crises and tactics
You gotta mute.
cards.
You gotta mute the stream, or you're gonna keep hearing it double.
I hit a button and then unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. And there's also a pairing process. So there's a certain process that the captains go through where they drop a certain player down, and then there's a choice between what players they're going to pair into, and then there's also choice of tables. We'll talk about that in a little bit and how that worked, and so that's just to help everybody understand what this is about. And basically, we had countries from all around the world coming together to play in this team championship, and it was 5 rounds over the course of the 2 days. So hopefully that sets things up without spoiling too much. The first question I have is for Gil. We're going to talk a little bit about logistics a bit, and Huggy Bear and Andres, you can reply not from the point of view of what it was like your experience as an attendee. Okay.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about the games themselves that you guys played and what went into those matches and that and so forth. But so my first question, Gil, we're going to get into the origins of it. But the first question it's been on my mind. As a Dane, you're from Denmark, you're in Copenhagen. Can you tell us, do the Danish people get a little nervous when a horde of Swedes in uniform come into the room? Does that cause problems in emotional psyches?
We're not too worried about that because we've beaten the Swedes enough since King Carl Gustav was beaten all over Europe. Since then, they haven't been that dominant. So, except for in gaming a little bit. So we're fine. We're fine. We're not too terrified.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
He has a lot of things to say now.
Yeah, he's holding back.
Well, the 11s would like a word with you.
Yeah.
I mentioned that because there were 5, I think it's right? 5 Swedish teams who came over,
that's right.
all with beautiful jerseys on. We're all wearing our jerseys, so I happen to be playing too. I'm gonna not talk about my games today, but I was on one of the English teams. We have the 2 boys here from the Swedish team, and then Gil's got his jersey as head judge. And so it was 25, well, 5 teams of 5, so that's 25 Swedes. Were there a few Mercs as well on other teams? So was there even more than 25?
No, there were 25 Swedes in total, and I think all of them were in Swedish teams.
Okay.
They spent all
my
of their
impression too.
yeah. We all love the name of the last Swedish team, the Swedish leftovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was true to its nature, so to speak, because all of the 4 out of 5 Swedish teams were sort of regionally based. Our team, Good with Hammers, was from the south, and then there was one team, Hedning, that was from the north, and then we had 2 teams from the Stockholm Uppsala area. The Sweden and I've forgotten what the Uppsala one was called. Wrecking Crew.
Yes,
Wrecking Crew.
that's right, Wrecking Crew.
And then the leftovers were like, well, the rest of straggling players here and there made up a team.
I have to say those
Yeah,
those leftover guys.
You can.
The leftover guys were kind of like that meme where, you know, the Olympics podiums, first, second, and third place. The people, so there's like the first place person is, you know, relaxed up there. In second place was fine, but the third place guy is like pouring champagne over his head, biting the metal and everything. Those guys just looked like they were having a blast, just happy to be there.
They were.
Correction, I got it wrong. The Hedning was Uppsala and Västerås. Wrecking Crew was the north.
Yep.
You were saying, Andres, about them?
Oh yeah, they were having a blast. 2 of them are from our local meta, and they were sort of they weren't really interested in going there super competitively. They just wanted to experience the event, and then as soon as they realized, hey, there's a spot, we'll just take it, I guess. So yeah.
That's the spirit. I love that.
Yeah.
That is what I try to encourage everybody. A lot of people are like, oh, we're not good enough. Oh, we don't know how to travel. And I'm like, just come. It's just an experience, if nothing else. You don't have to do well. That's not the point. That's only a third of the point. 2/3 of it is the being with the community, socializing, falling asleep under tables Saturday night. So that
I saw that picture.
Yep.
Yeah, but you can say us Swedes are very privileged by the fact that it's really easy and cheap for us to get to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So I guess you could understand the fact that we had 5 teams against that background.
I mean, the team the furthest away could take a short plane ride or a train ride easily. It's like going to the tournament the furthest away in Sweden for them. It's just, yeah. And for half a year, it's just crossing a bridge. So
Yeah, for us it was a like 35 to 40 minutes train ride from our homes. So
which is shorter than one of the Danish team who's 3.5 hours away.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, let's start with Gil then. At what point in your mind? Now you've helped people understand. You've run local events, so you've run even 2-day events in Denmark. You certainly go to a lot of tournaments. You've been over to Adepticon with me as well, but you haven't run something at the size of this. At what point did you make the decision in your head to do this, and what drove you to do it?
Yeah. Well, I've been part of the War Machine WTC committee for a few years, and I was part of doing that last year. So I decided to do the War Machine one this year. And I'm standing in my local gaming club on a Wednesday playing, and we're talking about the WTC, and all those guys used to play War Machine. Most of them are playing MCP now. And then one of the guys says to me, a guy named Rune, he's like, oh, it would be cool if we added like MCP for the WTC. And I was like, actually, we do have space, and I really want to fill up the numbers so, you know, everything works. The more people, the easier the budget is. So I was like, sounds like a good idea. Let me check that out. And then I went to the York weekend or the Nations we had earlier in the year?
It was the York Weekender in February.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So in February, I went to the York Weekender, and I had a talk with you and Pat. I said, what do you think? Should we do the MCP WTC? I was like, let's talk with people. And everybody at the York Weekender was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I thought, okay. I sent a message to the rest of the committee. Does anybody object to we adding that to fill up the numbers? And they all went, no, that's a good idea. I was like, great. Told everybody, let's do it. Went home and then started planning from February that let's put in a WTC in half the time than we normally do to plan an event like that. And then we went from there.
So that's amazing. So it was, you know what it was? And this goes back to my point about going to events. Would it be fair to say that you kind of got caught up in how wonderful the York Weekender is and how inclusive it is and intense the gaming is and also the socializing? Do you think that was kind of pushed you over the edge at that moment to say, screw it, I'm just going to do it?
That was the deciding moment. I mean, one guy said, shouldn't we do that? I was like, okay, let me just get some people to tell me I'm not an idiot and this is a good idea. And then you and Pat said, yeah, if we can, why not? And all the players like, that'd be lovely. Let's do it. And, I think that was Friday night when we do scrambles, pickup games. Paul Nord was doing an interview on his Epic Flail. And, let's be honest, there was some alcohol flowing. I brought some over and you had your whiskey. So we were happy and it was gaming, exactly. And then, I was like, okay, let's see if we can do this, we're doing it. But screw it. Check with the hotel. Yep. And I was like, made some very, very fast calculation. I thought, yes, the budget looked like I can do it, plus minus a little bit. I can cover that. We're fine. Let's go.
Amazing.
And then, I just went for there.
Did you know what you were getting yourself? Oh, let me put it differently. At what point from February till October, at what point did you realize that I am in over my head? Oh my God.
First time I realized this was, monumental is when I actually did the math on how much terrain do I need to produce. And we thought, okay, because I thought, if we get like 16, 20 teams, we're good. And we got the numbers and all of a sudden we exceeded War Machine and went to 32 teams sold out. We had, 30, then the 31. And then you managed to get the last one. So we get pull a group together. So we went up to 32 teams. I was like, okay, let's cap it here. So we guaranteed 5 rounds. We're full up. We have the space. And I did a quick math. I was like, okay, 12 to 20 piece terrain. That's an average of 15 per table. I was like, that's 1,200 pieces of terrain for 80 tables. Can we print that fast? Can we buy that fast? And can we paint it? I was like, okay, well, we'll get the printers in, and realizing they take a couple of months to get ready. So that was 3 months where we were waiting for the printers to actually get here to start printing. And then we start printing, realizing we print X amount of it per week. I was like, we can't do that. Okay, let's talk to my good friend Hank Williams from Adepticon.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I can borrow you 32 tables. I was like, fantastic. Okay, so that's almost halfway. Talked to the guys in Denmark, a guy named John Smith who won the best painted table. He's like, I can do 8 tables. Like, fantastic. Now we're 40 tables halfway. Talk to the Swedes. I know they have a lot. So I talked to Huggy. And we worked out 17 or 18 tables from Sweden. I was like, 58. That means I need to produce 22 tables instead of 80 tables. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then I had some stuff in the club we could use. Some of the other guys here in Copenhagen were doing it. All of a sudden, we ended up at the event with 80 tables and 4 boxes of terrain we didn't use. So
nice.
We could have, I mean, all the toy cars I bought to fill up, we used half of them. So we could have put a ton more cars on the table. But when we put everything up, everybody's like, that looks good. And it's like, we still have boxes of terrain. I had 2 sets of terrain we didn't even put on the table. It was like, we're good. That's perfect. And then we're going to produce more. So next year, I'm going to put all the own terrain up. Plus minus the table, who's going to go for best painted table, of course. We can do a row for them so they can set the table up there. So it's easy for everybody to see him and vote on him. And we're going to continue that tradition, giving out prize for best painted table. So
yeah. So it pays to know friends when you're running the biggest event in MCP.
Yes. If you want to do an event bigger than 16 people, have connections. I experienced that back in the day when I did Warhammer. We used to do Giant Fanatic in Copenhagen.
Right.
Which the biggest one was 510 players and 2,500 visitors. That was a nightmare. But luckily we were a crew of 10 experienced people to do that. Otherwise we couldn't have done that.
Yeah. All right. So how did you find this venue? So to help people understand, I'll really quickly say it's literally, airport hotel right across the street from the terminals. There were 2 hotels. We stayed in one of them, but in the basement of that one was also then this massive American style convention hall, huge ceilings, very nicely lit, carpeted floors. The ceilings are important both for air conditioning, but also for noise reduction. I mean, it wasn't very noisy at all, despite having 32 teams plus 24 War Machine teams of 5 in there. How did you come across this gem of a location?
Well, I was going to look around for places. I know somebody, the hotel next to where we were used to be a Hilton, where I've done security for many years. So I knew it was there, and they were building a new one, and that was advertised as a conference hotel. So I had that in mind, and another hotel close by the airport. We had to do a metro in and out to get there, which is also an option because they have the biggest conference center in Denmark, the Bella Center. I was looking at that, and then somebody suggested what we call DGIB, the city. It's a It's a sports hotel arena close to Copenhagen Central train station.
All right.
Okay, they're the cheapest. Let's talk to them first. But they could only accommodate, I think, 240 people sleeping there. So it's like, if we set out, I don't have room for everybody plus one and everything, and it's going to be too close, and they won't book everything up. And the halls is split up, so it's not as good logistically wise. I was like, so we scrapped that idea. I was like, okay, I'll talk to the Comfort Hotel, which we're in, and then I'll look at Bella Center. And I connected with the first hotel, the Comfort Hotel in the airport.
Right.
At the same time, I was contacting the other hotel. Comfort came back with me with a very good offer. I looked at that, and then I was still waiting for Bella Center, and I was like, I could wait and see if they can do it cheaper, but this is a better location because basically you get out the terminal and you cross the road, you're there.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be great because I've been to all the WTCs in War Machine, and I know the traveling from the airport to the location can sometimes be annoying. Renting a car, having train connections, can you get your flight back? Do you have to stay an extra day just to get back the next day? So I thought, no, you know what? I looked at it. This budget can work. So let's just go with that plan, and then I don't have to waste another 2 weeks arcing back and forth with hotel and stuff.
Right.
And travel plans for people. It's like, no, we'll do the airport. You can get out of the plane, walk across the street.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Let's do that.
All right. Let's turn to then Anders. What was your impression then when you walked into the hotel?
I would say, I mean, it was a good location. I think being able to, for us, we didn't come by flight, of course, but the trains coming across the bridge from Sweden stops at the same place, so that was very nice. It was, shall we say, slightly windy. We got out.
We'll come to that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. I think the wind was one of the teams that we had to combat to win this thing.
Yeah, probably. So no, I enjoyed the location. I think the convention hall was very nice. It was very spacious, and like you all said, it was high up to the ceiling, and you could have a lot of people in there without it getting way too crowded and noisy. And I'm a bit sensitive to too much like sound and interaction, so for me that was just good.
Yeah. What did you think of the table space actually?
I think the table space was perfect. There was a lot of room to have your characters and everything out. You could have it right in front of you. You didn't have to like scooch over to the side. You didn't have to like fight for space with your neighboring players.
Yep.
It was like the terrain. The tables looked very nice. There was no unpainted terrain on any table, which was very cool.
Yep. And plenty of it. It wasn't sparse, unless it was by design.
Yeah.
I play Magneto, so I enjoy a densely populated table. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. We actually discussed that briefly. That maybe the tables were even a bit on the dense side, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
you could say that
could have gotten away with less actually.
Or at least have maybe one of the tables be even higher density and one be very low density to help try to make the pairing process even more meaningful.
That was the plan.
That was the case on multiple sets of tables, but not all.
No, and that's a mistake. It's on us because we did set everything up on Friday. I told people what to do. Because of the busy schedule, I didn't manage to double check it Friday night or Saturday morning, which is on me. And I did find out that somebody did set some of the tables up right, and then Friday night game we found out somebody mixed it around a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So as we set them up, and we didn't find out until round 2 or 3 on Saturday, and I was like, oh, okay, that was a thing. So that's a note we're making as an organizer. Put the train up, double check it Friday, double check it Saturday, double check it Saturday night, and then Sunday morning.
Yep.
So because the whole plan was that you have 5 rows of table, and there should be one table which is a shield table. One's a Magneto table, and the 3 others is going to be a mix in between of that. So the tables matters when you pick, because if you get 3 picks of matchups, the other get 3 picks of tables. Those tables should matter. Otherwise, it's pairing process doesn't matter.
The other thing I'll add to Andre's comments about the tables, they definitely were spacious, lots of room between the tables for your stuff, which was amazing. But you also had all 5 games all on the same row. So you didn't split your team between rows, and there was not even another team attached to the same row, which was just ideal.
That was a priority for me, because one thing I hate going to a tournament is when I bend over the table, I bump the guy on the table behind me.
Yeah.
And when I want to put stuff down, I'm fighting with the guy next to have my dice, my box
Yeah.
with stuff and everything, or I got to put my tray of models under the table and hope not to step on it.
Yep.
I was like, I hate that. And we had the space. I went like, instead of going, I could have gone the rows shorter. I was like, no. If we got room to make him, I wanted every table, every player should have 1.5 meter of space, including the mat and space to set aside, and then they had room on both sides as well,
Yep.
in front of you, everything. I was like, there had to be space. If not, we're not going to do it, because it's got to be comfortable. You got to have space. Do your thing. You should worry about gaming, not about space and stuff.
I think you really managed that, because the one of the things that I noticed was it was way easier keeping a clean playing area, and like seeing, so like you had a very easy time getting a good overview of your opponent's cards, how much power or damage they had, and like status conditions and everything, because it wasn't like shifted to the side. You could just look across the table and there it was.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. So we're going to continue that. That was perfect with the table size for their side and the mats and everything. And I have the formula now for how much we set up. So that's easy going forward.
And the good news is when please, Huggy Bear.
One thing that I used in a significant amount of were the free cold water taps that were here and there. Those are key to success, I'd say.
That's
they
right.
Were very nice.
Really large, spacious toilets as well. No congestion there. Always kept nice and clean. And you're right, Huggy Bear. There was fresh water taps located in multiple places around the hall that you could fill up your bottle whenever you wanted. No problems. You didn't have to buy anything. It was fantastic.
I will ask for one thing.
Go ahead.
Free coffee next year.
That's the thing we were talking about. I actually thought that was included, but it was only included in the dinners.
Okay.
So it was a fast communication on some things with the hotel, and me reading the offer and understanding it one way, and them's like, it's, and again, double check and triple check and make sure that we actually agree on it. But I'm going to have a talk with them, because we're already going for the same venue next year. So I have a list of points I want to improve on, and they have a couple of things they want me to do different.
Okay.
And we'll sort everything out, and next year we'll be even better.
That's the thing. Go ahead.
It was probably good, because I drank so much water. I think that actually helped me play well. So
yeah, me too.
I'll make sure the coffee is expensive next year, so you can only drink water.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got there just about after 4:30, and I only mentioned that because it's not about me today, but I mentioned that because the hall was already mostly set up and people were able to start playing straight away. Registration was a breeze. The hotel, we registered for our room without any fuss. We didn't have to register with Gil because of Longshanks. Everything was in there already. So it was super simple. Once we actually got into the hotel, and we'll talk about that in a minute, we just got our key cards. The rooms were perfect Scandinavian classic rooms, simple, very cozy, comfortable, great showers. I mean, the hotel rooms themselves were just fine. Any difference of opinion there, Huggy Bear or Andres?
Come on, Sweets. You can. Some of them doing the 8-man.
Some people were a bit ambushed by the 8-man rooms. I thought they were really fresh. I can understand the guys that opened the door to the room and found, here are double beds. Okay, who's getting who?
Yeah, the 8-man rooms, they had two types of 8-man rooms. The ones with 8 bunk beds, and then the ones where two of the bunk beds is double in the bottom, and we weren't supposed to get any of those. So the ones who got into that room got changed over to a proper 8-man room, where there was all individual beds for all 8 players, and then it was like a double apartment with 2 showers and 2 toilets and stuff like that, and a big space in the middle with a table for them to do planning if they wanted to, or having a party. So we might just go with double rooms.
Gil, let me ask you this: was it just 5 people, like one team, in the 8-person room, or were you mixing teams as well?
No, I was doing for the 8-person room. There's a ton of suites, so they got 3 of them, and then one of them got bunched in with somebody else, and then the Irish people, they were 3 teams, so they got bunched in to them, and try to, because with 5-man teams and all the rooms is either 8 person or 2 persons.
Right.
I had some of them shared together, but I was like, okay, there's 2 teams from one country. That's fine. They get 5 rooms. Boom, easy peasy. So the caption from each team was just put together.
Right.
Of course, some of that changed because then team had +1s. So then that's where we had to get creative. We did have where I had to have countries from different countries sharing. I was like, okay, so the Belgium and Germans, they're very similar in culture and language, so they were bunched together. So I had to do stuff like that. So
this is very interesting, my friends. Watching Gil working the cultural the cultural angles as he's making room assignments.
And then having people sending me updates and changes. The week up to the event, we changed the list of names of who goes in what room. I changed it 5 times in 4 days. I was talking back and forth with the organizer at the hotel. I could hear fear in her voice every time I called her on the phone.
Yeah.
And sometimes I had to take it easy. It's not about rooms. It's something completely harmless this time.
I just want to say 2 things. One is first of all, I hope this gives the audience an understanding of just like how, okay, you may not have had the most convenient room or it may be a little awkward, but listen to what he had to do to try to accommodate this. And I remember on the day, like people with spouses were coming, which is great. Like more people bring spouses. That's fantastic. But they didn't tell them until like that day, or there was a misunderstanding about it. It was supposed to be coming on. So it doesn't matter the specifics. The point is you were wheeling and dealing with the rooms up to the day of the event and through the day of the event.
Through the weekend.
Yeah, through the weekend. Okay, so somebody picked up a wife along the way and needed a room.
Because of a lot of different things we're not going to come into, there was mistakes that had to be changed, and not having the schedule on hand and having to do all that in my head while I was trying to get the next round started or finished. We had to do a lot of things on the fly and then just change it. And to be honest, the reception staff were fantastic. They just like roll with it and it's like, okay, we have a thing and let's not look for problems. Let's just fix things.
Yes.
So we just went, okay, here's the thing. This guy's supposed to be with him, but they're there. And because of this, and some people made some changes themselves without telling me because that was convenient, but that's fine. And then later that'll cause a problem. Yeah. We had people staying from Sunday to Monday, but then 2 guys were together, but only one stayed. So that means one had to move to another room or somebody from another one had to move to him. And all that had to be planned out. Yeah. And then there were mistakes in the sheets or people forgot to put something in and they were there. So when the people are there with their wife or the extra person or whatever, I'm not going to tell them, well, go sort your own room out. I could have if I don't have a reservation, right? But I didn't. No. I just went, let's sort it, fix it. So you have your wife, great. The guy who's in the room, I'll stick him in another room and you stay with your wife. And we roll with it. And
you're making a lot of assumptions. You know, threesomes are very popular these days, Gil. I don't know if you know.
I mean, if there were foot, I didn't mind. I did have to put 3 guys in one room because that was the only way we could fix it. And then we changed it later. And
it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy.
I'm just going to make a note. Never share rooms with Norbert.
Or at least don't bring your wife, Huggy Bear.
Americans don't want to share with either because they were more than happy to, like one of his comments like, I'll take the Swede or I'll take the Norwegian. I don't care. I was like, oh, I'm not sure they're agreeing with you, but
all right. So
we had really nice like camp feeling with the Stockholm team in the same room, and they were not big snorers, so win.
Yeah. Plus, you had that, like you said, there was a central area too where you could have your drinks and have some laughs in between the rounds, or you know, at the end of the day or whatever. So there could be some advantages, at least if there's just like one team or 2 teams from the people from the same country. But
I would say that not much time was spent in the room anyway because you wanted to hang out with all the awesome people downstairs. So
we had a big area downstairs for that. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good. So in addition to the gaming hall downstairs, they also had a foyer type of area with lounge chairs that people hung out in, but loads of people just hung out in the hall itself. And then you also had a separate room for the dining area for us to eat dinner in particular. Gil, though, let's move on to, you know, complicating the room situation was the weather. So for people who don't know, Europe had one of these now sadly more common massive storms, quite a bit of rain, but honestly it was the wind that was the problem. This was a 3-day storm. This was the third day of it. And the wind was so bad, it was just wrecking havoc on air travel. And tell us a little bit about how that impacted you and the event.
Well, the first impact we almost had is when I drove up to the event to unload, and I had Andre from Norway in my car, and he opened the door and almost blew the door off because he didn't hold on. We were like, okay. So just getting stuff out the car into the hall without having terrain blowing down the back of the hotel was a challenge. So luckily we could open and pull the trailer in, and then we find out like our flights to cancel was like we're at first this team. Our flight is canceled. We had a replacement coming from the US who was supposed to be on the Israeli team who had to cancel. Then we moved into another team who lost a player.
Right. Don't overlook that. So the Israeli team had to cancel because of this horrible situation in the first place. So that was out. So now you're down one team, okay, as it is. Then God sends a massive windstorm through and says, Gil, you're going to earn this WTC. Deal with it.
Well, actually, let's go one step back because the Israeli team got cancelled and then you stepped up and got in 24 hours a team UN together.
Yep.
So we were back to 32 teams. Then we get the massive storm, and then I get a notice from the French team that their flights cancel. Then the American player from the Israeli team, who's now on another team, he's stuck in France because that was his connecting flight, so he's stuck there.
Right.
And then people come in, we might lost a player. Swedish team lost a player to COVID, but he hadn't affected anybody. But I think that was War Machine. Or was that?
Yeah, that was War Machine.
That was War Machine. But then there was other teams losing a player because of sickness or flights or whatnot. So all of a sudden I was standing there Friday night looking like we were 31 teams and 4 teams down a player. I was like, okay, we'll see what we do because worst case, if we have 31 teams and some teams down, we'll split up Team UN and be 30 teams, full teams, instead of having somebody play, being one player down. Mm. So Saturday morning comes and everybody says we're still down the French team. I forgot to send a message to Poulet saying, are you here or not? So we split out the UN team into all the other teams. I do the first round. And then the French team comes up to me and say, we're not in the list. I was like, I thought you weren't here. No, we're here. Well, obviously I can see 5 French players in front of me. So, okay, call everybody back. And, well, it's okay. So we now have 31 teams. And then we had to decide, are we going to put the UN team back together and have 32 teams, but 5 teams a player down? Or are we going to go 31 teams and then somebody gets a bye? Mm-hmm. And all the captains, we did a vote quickly. And the captains agreed with like 90% margin that we thought it was better to just do 31 teams and a bye. And I think a couple of the guys who voted against it, did it just to spite a couple of guys on the other side, just out of, because there's got to be somebody opposing. Yeah. It was more of a joke. Everybody was fine with it as far as understood. So when, 31 teams and the French says, yeah, we'll take the bye the first round. We're happy.
That's amazing. Kudos to the French guys for that. Huggy Bear, you're a captain, so tell us a little bit about what went through the crowd there as you guys were trying to sort out this really difficult situation. Poor Gil, running his first WTC, hotel rooms were a mess as it was because of miscommunications. Then, like, just random people not making it, some people not making it, but then suddenly are able to make it, some people coming in late. What went through your heads? Tell us a bit about the vibe with the captains.
Well, to first address the bye situation, I was one of the captains that voted for having a bye rather than having 32 teams, but 5 teams, 1 player down. And, well, it's basically a no-brainer. The same number of players, you have the same number of players that don't get to play each round, namely 5. But with a bye, you only have 1 team being affected by it, whereas with 32 teams, you will have 5 teams affected by it, and they will have their whole experience sort of tainted by the fact that they're a player down. So that was easily the best decision for the whole, as the way I see it, at least.
Yeah, and I think that swayed everybody.
Say again.
I think that was the argument because that argument was made. Hockey did the math for everybody, and then after that, it went from instead of having 32 teams, that made more sense. So everybody shifted from maybe we have 32 to go and let's do the buy. It made more sense. That's the way I saw it. And when he did that, everybody was like, oh yeah, okay, and then boom, everybody just moved to the buy side.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have to say I'm very impressed with Gil's organizational skills here. I tried to stay away from him as much as possible during the course of the event, because I realized that he's got other things to do here. So just the occasional pat on the back, maybe. I was in a somewhat stressful situation on Sunday morning where which we can get back to later.
Okay.
Where I was about to contact Gil about the thing, but
that's
luckily,
your own fault. That has nothing to do with the storm or Gil. It has to do with Swedes and alcohol and too much of a good time. That's what that is.
Oh, he sent me to contact Gil instead.
We'll come back. We'll
come back. Fine. Cool. So I also want to quickly compliment everything you said about Gil is 100% correct. He kept his head together under an extremely stressful situation. But I also want to compliment all the teams who accepted random people into their group without complaint and making them feel welcome as part of the team. All the substitutes were super happy. They didn't feel like they were ostracized at all. And also the team players who decided to just play whatever they were given or to make some substitutions of the models that they had and make the best of it and help the event out. They were very, very selfless in that way. Of course, they had a good time, but they didn't make a fuss, and the event was a big success because of those sacrifices that they made. So I want to compliment all those teams and all those players that did the substitutions.
One of them was actually second judge, Will from the UK, who I just like, here you go, here's playing my X-Men list. Forgot to tell him how I play my X-Men list. It's slightly different than everybody else. I was like, here's my X-Men list with Hulk, go play. And he was like, cool.
Yeah.
And he went off and he was like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to play X-Men again because it didn't work for me. I was like, I should have probably told you a few things about how to play that list. I'm sure he played it differently than me.
Gil, tell us a little bit about the referee staff and the substitutions you had to make and how ultimately a gentleman stepped up.
With the judges I had, we started making a UN team when we thought we were one team down. Then we found out there was one of the Finnish team was not registered as an MCP team, so we were actually 32 teams. So we had to have a UN team not be a UN team, and then two of them was offered to be judges from the UK, AJ and Will, and they were more than happy to come over and say, yeah, we'll just come over and be a judge. That's perfect. And then I thought it'd be better after actually talking with you and Pat Dunford. It'd be better if I had a third judge so I could focus on just organizing and not having to be a judge. So I asked one of the Danish guys, a guy named Mads, who does all the tournaments on the western side of Denmark. Do you want to come and be a judge? And he was like, I don't think I'm good enough. I think you are. And you just basically have to do rulings. I do everything else. It's like, yeah, I'm in. Cool.
Yeah.
So we did that. And then on the day, we still got 3 judges. I got the shirts. We're missing a player, and you contact a guy in France Friday morning.
Yes.
And you come play. And he's like, yes. And then we get a message that, yeah, I got a plane. I'm coming out 9 o'clock tonight. And he's like, oh, my plane's canceled. My plane's back on. Somebody's sick in the plane. We're waiting for a doctor. And in the end, then I think he was flying out Saturday morning, arriving around started.
No, so he was supposed to come Friday night. That plane gets canceled because of weather. By some miracle, they had a flight for him Saturday morning that would get him in at 9:10, and the event's supposed to start at 9:30. So no problem. He gets on the plane, and then somebody gets sick so bad that a doctor had to actually come onto the plane. But they managed to get that person settled somehow, and then he flew in, and sure enough, showed up just in time, 9:30.
Started around start, and we were told that Torbjörn from actually the winning team was supposed to be late. And then when the round started, as you can't miss Torbjörn, I saw him standing at the table doing the pair, and I was like, I guess he was on time, but he was supposed to be 15, 30 minutes late. But he wasn't.
Yeah,
We
Yeah,
will
but
get
This
back
was
to
the time I was alluding to.
Yeah, I think he just probably stepped across the water with his long legs. I don't think he got the train.
Yeah.
I just
He didn't bother with the train.
yeah, he just stepped 4 steps. He's across the belt, and then he walked in, not even dry, not even wet on his socks or anything.
So the
There's also-
Frenchman that we were talking about with the doctor and everything else, I later found out. I noticed he had a wedding band on, and I said, "Wait a minute, your wife was cool with you coming over like with less than 24 hours notice to this?" And he said, "Yeah." I asked her, "Is it okay?" And she's like, "You can't miss this. You got to go." And I was like, "Wow, you got a great choice of wife, and that was amazing. What an
Only
epic."
been married- what is it? They've been married 2 years, so they're past the honeymoon year.
Right.
They're into the second year, and she still went, "Go, honey." I was like, "She's a keeper.
Yeah.
Never let her go."
I
No,
once. Yeah.
It's. I mean, I'm gonna say it many times, but I want to thank all the players who attended, because when I was walking around feeling stressed and being unhappy with my organization, well, I've done events for 23 years, and I've said I've done very big events, so I put a very high standard on how I wanted to do it, and I wasn't happy with it. But walking around the hall, and every second or third person would stop me and say thank you, and just saying fantastic event, and somebody else would stop and do it. It's like, that's what kept me going for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I bet.
Every time I felt bad, I was like, okay. And then somebody came over, gave me a hug, and the Finnish guy says, "You don't pay for beer or soda or whatever," and bought me a drink. I was like, fantastic. I had a dinner Friday night where I had the first time I could sit down and have food. Pat was like, "I've eaten, but I'll come with you," because I said I need to eat and just
Chill.
a little bit, because I had a lot of things that wasn't working. I spent 3 hours to fix a UPS problem that still wasn't fixed, and it was pissing me off. And I was like, ready. Internally, I was, I was a hornet's nest of emotion and things exploding.
You didn't show it, dude. You didn't show it. You certainly didn't take it out on anybody. And you're so humble that after a successful event on Sunday, you were on the stage and you're like thanking everybody, and you literally say, "I'm sorry, I made a lot of mistakes." And I was like, "Okay, stop." That's when I jumped on the stage. I'm like, I'm not hearing any more of that nonsense, because you were the man and you pulled it off despite all this nonsense that was going on. Sure, not everything was perfect, but good God, that is still fantastic. Do you guys agree?
Oh,
Oh, for
100%.
sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, Gil
Happy right now, so you can't see the tears in my eyes.
Gil usually comes over. Well, he comes over like once a month, something like that, and plays with us in Malmo, and we know him. And like, this was a fantastic event, and any like small hiccups are all very small in comparison to the great experience it was. So all
Those
kudos.
will always be there.
Yeah.
I think the perfect event doesn't exist. There will always be small bumps in the road, but those, you forget them afterwards, and they do not in any way smear the big picture, so to speak. And I haven't seen anyone say anything else than that this was one of the best events they have ever attended, at least in MCP.
Yeah,
Thank
100%.
I appreciate it. We did actually have an old saying at the Giant Fanatic team. We used to say, if people only complain about the coffee was too cold or not enough, it was a good event.
Yeah.
So I think we're there.
And
I still
if I know you, you took at least mental notes, if nothing else, about the few things that you want to improve that didn't go so well. I mean, I think we talked a little bit earlier off camera about getting some things shipped a bit earlier, so you don't have to deal with the state of customs that the world is in now, sadly. You talked to the hotel about the food. The dinner was fine. Actually, dinner was quite nice. Lunch could have been different, and you've made that note to them. So aside from that, whatever else happened didn't really affect the players.
Lunch second day was really great. That was
lunch was better the second day. It was the lunch the first day.
Lunch on Saturday was good. I talked to one of the food managers, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll up it. We get a hold of the guy, and we'll change it for Sunday." Because I showed them something, but I talked to them, and they're like, "Yes, that's not top standard." These they have a certain standard they want to stay hold to. So I talked to him and was like, "Well, yeah, we'll change that." And it seems like everybody had. I didn't get any complaint about food on lunch on Saturday, so I think everybody was happy with the changes they made.
Yeah.
And but it is one of the points I'm going to talk with him about. But I mean, the fact that the hotel was flexible. If we had a problem, they were willing to step in and help, and they're willing to change things as long as it was within the parameters we could do with it. So in that, I'm very happy.
Oh yeah, and in fact, at one point, Gil sends the concierge type person over, like the event manager person over to me, and I'm like, he said, "Here, this is the events manager." I'm like, "Okay, why are you sending him over here?" He goes, "You and Huggy Bear had a problem with the beer, as I understand." From your show, and you're like, so you get to choose now which beers are here because I'm not dealing with this.
I don't know what people want to drink.
I was unaware.
You say it was boring, the selection in the bar. I was like, what do we do? I was like, Norbert, come over here. I was like, tell them, and it's like, what? You tell them what kind of beers you want at the bar, so people are actually spending, buying beer in the bar. Because for him, he's like, I have a selection of 3 or 4 beers, and nobody wants any of them, so we're not selling beers. There's no point being open. And then I was like, talk to Norbert. He can tell you what kind of beers you want, because I asked for something, but I was like, I just gave him a suggestion, and then I hoped they would make it. They didn't get the right ones. Then I was like, go to Norbert. And I know on the Saturday and after they changed it, people seemed more than happy because there was a lot of beers being flowing.
Yeah.
I saw people coming with trays of, just buying 6 or 8 beers and just walking into the hall. I got beers, and everybody was happy.
Yeah. Yeah, so look at that. One of the fellas in the chat just saying the blonde. So I chose the blonde as like the standard, like for most people would like. Apparently they ran out. We drank them dry.
So it was a good sign. If you empty the bar, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So we had a blonde. They had an amber, and then they had a double amber, like a Belgian style double. And I mean, those are the ones I chose out of the list that they gave me, and it seems like it worked out. Did you guys have any beers? I don't know. Huggy Bear or Andres?
Oh, for sure, but max 2 per player at Saturday night.
Oh, the captain putting down the hammer.
We may or may not have broken that, but I won't tell.
Well, at least you weren't sleeping under a table next morning.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think that was a Finnish guy.
That was a Finnish guy.
Yeah, well, naturally. So, no Belgians were consulted for the beer choice, but I am an honorary Belgian beer drinker, sir. So I think I managed to do okay with what I was given. One last thing about the logistics. Gil, there was an extremely important World Cup rugby match happening on Saturday night. Gil had these literally monstrous like sports stadium screens, 3 of them set up in the hall, and he displayed the England versus South Africa rugby match, which I think was more contentious than the matches during the day.
Yeah, because we had all the English players and Scottish and Irish players sitting there watching, and then we had Team South Africa as well.
Yeah,
who was playing War Machine. So they were sitting in their South Africa jerseys, all 5 of them, with some English and Irish players. And then there's a whole group of English people with me sitting behind, and we, toasting each other. And the game was going on. And I mean, Rich Schmidt came up and said, "Can we watch the rugby game this year?" But you gotta stream it. Yeah, I got my account. I was like, great, I've got a computer. And we went to my computer, we logged into his account. And then I just casted up screen on all of them. I was like, there you go. And that's why now I could put sound on as well. Awesome. So we had the sound on, the rugby match on, and people still playing War Machine and MCP all over the hall. And I put the level of the sound so we could hear it, but it wouldn't bother the players. And nobody even looked up like, what the fuck's going? They just went, yeah, we're playing, you're watching, we're happy, and here we're flowing.
It was the quintessential WTC moment, because there's a huge room. People are watching this match, losing their minds. There are people playing games, people drinking heavily, and and it was just all happening around you in the same space. It was just like the geeky cocoon that you hope for. At least I hope for when I go to something like this. My point is, nobody disappears for dinner or anything like that. We eat dinner together, and then we go and carry on for the rest of the night. And if Rich Mid has anything to say about it, he was at the rooftop bar until 4:30 or something like that, and he was not alone. No,
I heard people having chill out sessions with beers in the room till 3 in the night, and people staying at the rooftop bar. There was people, they couldn't be down in the foyer after 12, but then they went to reception in the reception area, drinking there. So there was people all over in groups and just enjoying themselves. I went home and I thought, if I'm lucky, I can get 4 hours of sleep before I'm back. And then the next day I think it was 3 hours one day and 4 hours the other day.
Yeah. We had a guy drive, his flight got canceled. He drove all the way from Amsterdam to the event. He got into the hotel at 5 o'clock, got 2 hours of sleep, and then played all day Saturday. And it, like,
Holy crap.
yes. And I want to compliment my English players who filled in the last minute Team UN, which ended up disbanding as it was, but still important. Those guys were legends. I asked them to come onto a Team UN on the Tuesday before the event, and I want to name them all because they're such legends. Ron Wild, Mike Field May, AJ, who was supposed to be a judge and then decided to switch over when we asked him to, and two folks from outside of London, Stuart and Elsa, were all ready to come and had to go. Elsa couldn't make it, unfortunately, because the flights ended up got canceled. If the flight was past a certain time, it seems like those ones couldn't get in because the wind just got so bad. To help people understand, I landed. First of all, the pilot was a friggin' legend because it bumped a little bit on the way down, but I've been in planes and that happens plenty of times. And it was fine. I'm like, okay, everything's fine. We're sitting on the tarmac and I'm like getting nauseous. And I realize I'm doing this in the plane that's on the ground. And I was like, damn, what the hell? I thought they were like pushing the plane to open the doors or something. Then the guy tries to push those stairs up against the thing. He can't maneuver the stairwell thing on the wheels because the wind is pushing him around so hard. Okay. They finally latched the damn thing onto the plane. I'm like, this can't be that bad. I get out and I literally get blown right off the side of the stairs. I had to grab the handrail to hold myself on. I get to the bottom of the stairs and at one point I literally was just leaning forward and not moving. I am not kidding you about how bad that wind was. And we had to walk to the terminal and then we had to walk across the street. And I don't know how we managed to get across the street. People sound like I'm over exaggerating. I am not. It was that bad.
The back of the hotel is like a wind tunnel. I have the whole side of the hotel and then there's a wall 20 meters tall on the other side. So it's just a wind tunnel where you test planes. So when you come in, what you experience is amplified by 3. So the wind was the worst when I was getting out after doing the setup. I walked out, took the first 2 steps, and then I just stopped of the wind. I'm 130 kilos leading into the wind. I used to play American football, push people twice, more than my weight out of the way. And I just moved and I just stopped and I had to push to move 6 meters to my car and open the door holding back so it didn't just blow off. I was like, okay. And then get in the car and then drive home and hope I didn't lose the trailer because that was now empty. So I drove slowly home in my big heavy car, hoping the trailer wouldn't just get torn off the car. I was like, okay, and get in. And I mean, unloading the car at one point, I was like, okay, let's park with the wind against the wind so my back door won't be getting blown off. But then the wind just kept pushing the door down, so it kept knocking me on the head and trying to close it. So we had somebody holding it. When we opened the big doors to get into the hall with the trailer, we had to put 3 guys up against that door so it didn't get blown shut. And we had to find the 3 heaviest guys, so the small guys had to do the lifting because otherwise we couldn't keep the door open. It was crazy.
It was so bad.
And then Saturday morning it was quiet.
What?
Saturday morning it was quiet, just a slight breeze.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like,
all right, Gil, anything else about the logistics you want to say? Because otherwise we're going to switch over to the gentleman here to talk about some games.
No, not really. I mean, there's just the things that we're going to improve stuff next year. Yeah, we're going to improve stuff next year. And I don't think I have to do a vote. I think the consensus is it'd be better we just do 2 people rooms instead. I'll find a way of doing
that. Yeah. Or at most have 5 people in one of the 8-person rooms. So that's like a whole team.
Yeah, that might logistically work. We'll do that price-wise and stuff. Or I might make a deal with them that so we basically just do every 5-man team either gets a 2- and a 3-man room, or they just get 3 2-person rooms, and then they deal with it however it is. I'll work something out so every team gets their own room next year.
Cool.
That's the thing we're gonna do.
Right on. All right, gentlemen. What do you want to start with? I was thinking that we could talk a little bit about the pairing process, or maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you prepared for the event, and what your expectations were going in. Let's start with that, actually.
So we had a discussion during the spring among the Swedish sort of an informal committee was quickly formed by some prominent Swedish TOs and players to discuss, okay, how will we handle the selection process for the WTC? Because at that time it was not entirely clear how many teams each country was going to get. So we had to make up plans like, okay, if we have this many teams, we have to do the selection process this way. If we have as many teams as we want, then, well, we don't have to do anything. We can just go nuts.
Go ham.
Which was what ended up to be the case.
Yeah.
So after some debating, we decided on doing regional teams rather than like an A team, B team, C team, and so on, because the argument for that was that we wanted to use the WTC preparation as a springboard for the local metas.
Excellent. That is amazing. That is such a smart move when it comes to a relatively new community of a game. That is so Swedish of you all. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah. So I hope that. Well, I certainly feel that the event now has injected a ton of energy into me in continuing to try and build a community, do demo games and stuff. But yeah, back to the process. So after having decided who were going to be on the team, namely myself as captain, Anders, we also had Torbjörn Hansen and Björn Nilsson and David Johansson. We started discussing lists and what to play, and we were sort of open-minded here. We were trying to find the best combinations with as little overlap as possible. It was never about I'm the best player, I get to choose first. It was all about, okay, is this character used better in this affiliation or in this affiliation? Me and Björn, for instance, had a long debate on who was going to get Agent Venom, which is a really useful character in Shield, but slightly better in Guardians. So he ended up in Guardians, but I don't know if Björn played him one single game.
I'm not sure either. I don't think he actually put him on the tape. Oh yeah, he did in one game, I believe.
Once. He's saying once. He's in the
Once,
chat.
yeah, one game.
I'm not.
I'm sure he only played that
me...
so that you wouldn't bitch at him later, saying "you motherfucker."
Yeah. But the thing is that that forced me into Spider-Woman, which is a character that I initially didn't like in Shield because I didn't think she fit well into the Shield game plan. She's much more suited to be a web warrior. But I have come around because he was an absolute star in both of my most difficult games over the course of the event.
Nice.
So if you want to, I've been a follower of these events for many years, and I know when you watch videos like this, all you want to know is
what are the lists?
about, how do you? What were the lists? How do you make them? Why did you do that? And what? And the lists in their entirety are up on Longshanks, so you can see them there. If you have specific questions about anything, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll try to answer them here. Or just hit me up on Discord later, or any of the other guys, I guess, about their lists. But,
so when did you
just contact me and I'll forward your questions?
Did you lock in lists at some point and then just start playing, or was it an evolution over the course of time until October?
We locked in lists on multiple occasions, but then changed our minds several times, and then we changed our minds entirely when the update hit.
Yeah.
And that caused two of our players, Anders was one of them, Torbjörn was the other, to just scrap their rosters entirely and start over.
Yeah, so I think that was the main thing. Me and Torbjörn were each playing different things that were hit differently hard in the character update that arrived, was it 2 weeks before list lock? Something like that.
Yeah.
So we had very little time to practice with new rosters. And I was the designated Malekith player because I've played him the most. And Torbjörn was a Black Order aficionado, I would say, and is probably one of the most practiced Black Order players out there. He has played a lot of Black Order games, and he plays them in an almost a scenario type of way. And he felt that he was hit so hard by the Thanos changes that his playstyle and the things he had practiced were no longer possible. So he felt he needed to drop Thanos. I felt that Malekith, while still being a good model, he got a much needed slap on the wrist. But that also meant that the playstyle I had been practicing, which was a slightly more restrained Malekith play, that was using a lot of control elements, that lost a lot of its legs. I felt that his power into other strong models like Hulk was severely reduced. And that meant that I went from feeling I can win games even if I have bad dice to being I need at least mediocre dice to win games, and across 5 games you're not going to guarantee mediocre dice, so I can't really play that list anymore. With only 2 weeks left, I went into my old workhorse, which is Brotherhood. I played a lot of Brotherhood before I started playing Malekith, and I enjoy the duality aspect of playing a list that can play both scenario and attrition, and can switch on a whim. And I would say one of the big things in our team is that we are very Swedish in that, like, oh, are you do you want this character? I can drop this character. I can drop this character. It's fine. You can. Are you sure you don't? Are you sure you're okay with me having that character? So, with maybe the exception of Agent Venom. So, for example, I said if I'm gonna be playing Brotherhood, I need Hulk, because he's very central to Mystique's game plan. And I had Hulk in my Malekith roster, so that actually meant not that big of a change for the overall selection process. No one had to reevaluate the rosters, and I believe Torbjörn is probably going to come out with a blog post pretty soon explaining a lot of his choices.
Nice.
He's a very analytical player, and he practices his matchups, he practices his game plan, and he's very skilled at knowing what to do in all the different situations. And so I think he felt we needed a more scenario focused team as our last place, since we were switching up teams. So he went with Webs, which I know he's played a bit before. And I think that's how we landed in the final sort of rosters, I would say.
And I just threw up Torbjorn's list so people can see it, and then Anders, I'm going to go ahead and throw yours up real quick to see how you ended up with your Brotherhood. Oops.
Yep.
Just a moment. I screwed that up. There we are. There we go. So what did you end up with?
So my list, as you can see here, is well, it's a pretty basic Magneto roster. I ended up taking Thanos because Bjorn, while being our Guardians player, he feels that he doesn't enjoy playing Thanos, and he feels like he can't do very well with him. And he also felt that Cosmic Ghost Rider is the better pick to play in most situations. So Thanos came in simply because I played a lot of Thanos before the gems got restricted. And in Brotherhood, I would say. And that was it was a very oppressive list that could push things on attrition. I think that was a mistake in hindsight, but I also think it probably scared a lot of people playing into it. I also went with Emma Frost as a sort of possible counter to the Cosmic Ghost Riders that were bound to be everywhere in the event. Shield Mind being able to stop the pull, which is a big thing. I ended up not playing Emma at all, and Thanos only one game. I think both Emma and Thanos were probably mistakes, but the rest of the roster was very tight, and Brotherhood has such a good affiliated stable that you can get by with playing those characters that I have. I also managed to snag Rhino as my sort of steel piece for Mystique's scenario play.
All right, Anders, let me ask you to talk about one other list, and I'll have Huggy Bear do the last two, his and another one. Which other one are you more familiar with?
So I can, since I know Torbjorn will come out with the with the post, I guess I can talk about David's list, because
Okay.
we talked a lot about like what we were doing, and I think David got sort of sidelined by the changes as well, with him playing a lot of Storm before, and he tested out I know he tested out a lot of Cyclops in the 2 weeks leading up to list lock.
Yeah.
And then I know he wasn't super confident about it, but then we sort of discussed things back and forward, and we landed in the normal pay to flips that we know X-Men likes to run, and then the superpowered scoundrels as a way of making his X-Men even tankier with Storm. Now you have the reroll, you have the cover from the crises, and you're able to play a lot of characters that have displacements. You have Rogue can displace size 4. Of course, he included the new hotness in Cable. I think he got almost all of the characters he wanted, and he's almost fully affiliated.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think he is fully affiliated now that I look at it.
Yep.
There's nothing that isn't X-Men affiliated in his list.
Yeah.
And I think he ended up playing Storm leadership for most of those games.
That's what I'm hearing. Everyone's hyped on Cyclops, and then just play Storm.
He played Storm all of the games at the WTC, and we joked about it because he was like, well, we're gonna we think like webs and stuff are gonna be scared of him because they don't want the pay to flips, even though they like the scoundrels. And then he ended up losing Prio for 4 of the games, and then on the one game he won, he got Scoundrels versus Avengers that has a lot of shield throws. So I really got to give credit to David for playing at what could be considered a bit of a disadvantage in the way X-Men work, and he played a really solid tournament, only dropping 1 game. None of our players dropped more than 1 game, and of course Torbjorn went 5-0. So I'm like David,
which is incredibly proud of.
Yeah.
Yes, and he is very proud of
with
that.
all right.
Yes.
Only 12 players went 5-0.
Only 12 players went 5-0.
Yes.
Out of 160. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think. Like I said, I just want to give a lot of credit to David because he came into this with a very proactive mindset and taking on feedback and everything, and he played such a good tournament. I really want to give credit to him.
Nice. Thank you. All right, Huggy Bear, let's talk about Bjorn and then your own roster.
Right. Which one do you want to do first? Bjorn.
Yeah.
I know he's in the chat, so he will have to correct me if I say anything stupid. But yeah, he is as you do in Guardians now. He's focusing around Cosmic Ghost Rider, trying to make the most out of him. I know that both research and fear grips are, and scrolls too for that matter, the extracts are horrendous to play against him, all of them. And on the Securus, it's just two E's, which means that you're bunched together and in the shooting gallery of the whole team. So it's an extremely deadly list, which is incredibly strong against teams that wish to tank and try to score points. Cosmic Ghost Rider can have the last say about that easily. And I think they have a really strong core with Star-Lord, Beta Ray Bill, and Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is 13 points. So at 15, you just add a 2. Rocket, most likely. At 16, a 3. At a 17, a 4. And so on and so forth. So it's really well-rounded, and it doesn't really need that many different characters. It's...
The rest are just cheerleaders, really. There's 4 that you use, and the rest are like, yeah, you go.
Yeah, I know he wasn't that excited about Angela, for instance. Oh, so apparently he did play all of his characters at least once, except Drax. So perhaps I stand corrected. But I know he discussed Angela at the times that, yeah, she should be in the list, but I don't like her, and I will probably not use her. So
Cool.
She can be a hit or miss, absolutely.
All right, Huggy. Everybody wants to know the Shield tech. So what did you end up with Shield?
this is like, in hindsight, I'm not entirely happy with my list, to be honest, but this is
Says the guy
I
who
had.
wins the entire World Team Championship. Well, I had
Always strive to be better. That's how you win stuff.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, because Shield was obviously one of the losers from the update, namely because of the nerf to Winter Soldier, which hurt Shield's old game plan a lot, which has been promoted a lot by Vincent Kirchhoff, going as wide as possible with lots of hard-hitting threes, and then Bullseye to top it off. And occasionally Black Widow 1, although she's not in my roster. So at first, when the update hit, I immediately threw Bucky out and started building my roster completely differently. I dabbled with OG Ghost Rider and Ebony Maw and Honey Badger and stuff, just stuff that could provide some anti-Cosmic Ghost Rider tech, because he was obviously going to be one of the big threats at the WTC. But then after a few practice games, I came around and decided to build a list that was sort of similar to the one I had been practicing all along, but with the addition of Voodoo and Hela. Hela is really good in Shield now, and she was a star player for me on more than one occasion.
Nice.
I think her biggest thing that made her good is the range 3 on her basic attack, and the reducing cost of her shooting attack, Claim Soul, and the Death's Embrace extra move. Yeah, a ton of stuff, actually. But when she's on her injured side and has 3 souls, she gets to automatically survive 1 attack. And that, in combination with Eye in the Sky and Sacrifice, is very powerful.
So she's immortal. Sounds like she's immortal.
If you set it up right, and the opponent if the opponent only has 2 attacks, she is immortal. If the opponent has a throw and you don't have brace, then we're starting to have a problem. If an opponent has more than 2 attacks or ways to do damage or multiple throws, then we're starting to have a real problem. Or if the opponent has Mystique or Emma, she's just dead, because she can't use her souls to survive against them, because that's a reactive superpower. So just don't play her against those characters. Voodoo and Spider-Woman were in there to allow me to have a sort of steal-oriented game plan at times. Shield steal, I like to call it. And I used that for one of my games to great success. Basically, the idea behind the tactics of that is just go 5 wide with Voodoo and Spider-Woman, who both can steal extracts. Try to play a draw for rounds, at least round 1 and 2, probably 3, and then do some steals and take the lead in a game-winning swing turn. And Shield, with their leadership, are really good at playing draw for a long time of the game. Just go 1 point down and get it refunded as soon as a character gets dazed. And if a character doesn't get dazed, then you're probably winning on attrition.
Yeah.
So you're presenting your opponent with bad options. So that's basically the idea behind that.
Cool.
The crises choices were mainly about points. I when Winter Soldier was nerfed, I decided I want to play 17 points as little as possible, because that's when he mainly comes in. At 18 points, which is my favorite points total, which motivated both Fear Grips and Montesi Formula, I can play Fury, Howling Commandos, Iron Man, and 2 Force of choice, depending on the situation. So that is a setup I really like.
Cool. All right. Thank you. I'm not going to go through all your matches and things because I believe you're going to be on a number of different shows. So I want to leave them some content. Hopefully, maybe Rich Mid can explore with you about your matches and things like that. But maybe on the whole, you, Anders, you could tell us a little bit about. Oh no, I lost my train of thought. What were your expectations coming into the event?
We were strictly forbidden by Huggy to mention anything about any other expectation than win the next match, which is something we repeated as a mantra. We're just going to win the next match and then focus on that. But I mean, I will say there was a bit of we were facing some pretty tough opponents. We drew England Lions in round 3, and we sort of felt. That was the
moment. That was
the moment. We felt we knew they had a substitute player, which meant they weren't as sort of synced as they would have been, and so the fact that we managed to win up on 4-1 rather than 3-2, and feel like that was something that we maybe would have stolen from them if they had their original player. Not to discredit their replacement, but I do know that their replacement had to replace their Cosmic Ghost Rider with Toad.
Yeah.
So
seems fair.
Which is it's fair, but it's
seems fair, and yet not.
But they're also playing from a disadvantage. So it felt good beating that team at 4-1 because they were a favorite team, I would say.
Sure.
And when we beat them, I felt like okay, maybe we do have a shot at this. We haven't played that much internationally. We've mostly played our local meta. We've played the Danish guys, and we played TTS. And some of us made cuts. Not me personally, but some of the others have made cuts. I think I played too many weird lists.
You could just add that all of us have been playing other games internationally and at big events as well. So not MCP in particular, but all of us had experience of the big scene from War Machine or Warhammer or X-Wing.
And we have a lot of competitive experience, even if it wasn't in MCP. And we went there with the intention of we're going to do as good as we can, and we're going to be proud of what we do. And I think, like I said, after game 3, we felt like okay, there's a possibility. We didn't really admit it, but we felt there is a possibility.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna let Huggy explain what happened at the start of day 2.
Sure. I have to give some background here because I've been thinking a lot about how we pulled this off, because it was definitely not something that even occurred to us that we had the chance of winning this. We had no ambitions whatsoever, and no lowest bar in mind. We just went in without expectations and just tried to do our best. And I, as a captain, I tried to focus on a couple of psychological factors, which I think are important from a leadership perspective. I've noticed that sometimes people think that the captain's job is to be the best player, but I think the captain's job is to get the rest of the team in a good mood and in a mood where they can perform to their best. And that also means not just focusing on the next game, but focusing on the next game can also mean focusing on multiple games forward in time, and I will get back to that. My one game at a time doctrine was mostly about on Sunday in particular, because at that time we were 3-0, and I was thinking, okay, so this is already more than we could dream of. We have knocked out England Lions, and we are in a semi-final, so to speak. But there's also the possibility that we could lose the 2 upcoming games, and then we will be at 3-2. And sure, that is a great result at the WTC. But after such an achievement, it would somehow feel a bit I don't know the English word really, but surprising in a negative way, so to speak.
Disappointment. Disappointment.
Yeah, slightly disappointing. So my idea of no talking about a final, just focus on the next game, which is a semifinal. Because if you go into that game thinking about the final and then you lose it, you're going to have a much harder time reloading and motivating yourself for the fourth game. So by not focusing entirely on the semifinal, and then we put ourselves at risk of losing a potential fifth game, or at least going into it with suboptimal psychological factors. So that was my thought behind that.
Yeah.
Also, at the Sunday morning, we had a problem with Thorbjorn's transport. There had been a misunderstanding that there was some work on the rails, so the trains weren't actually going. It was replacement buses instead. That morning, you have to. He went home overnight and slept at home, and came back in the morning because he lived so close by. We all did, but he chose to do that. So he messaged me in the morning and said, I will be a bit late. And at that time, we had gotten our opponent, and we had looked at our possible opponents the night before. We could either have your team, Norbert, which we were really hoping for, because that would have been so much fun and so amazing.
Yeah.
And we could have Austria, and we could have Spain. And out of those, we feared Spain absolute most. So I had the feeling all night that, it's probably going to be Spain. And what do you know? We get Spain. And then I get the message from Thorbjorn, and it's like, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, are we going to have to start the game without him? Is he going to be here? Are there going to be further delays? Is his clock going to start and tick down, and he's going to come here when he's got like 15 minutes left?
Mm-hmm.
So my mind automatically focused on that. Okay, so are we going to try to talk to Gil and ask if we can postpone the first round or things like that? And after a while of such thoughts, I came to the conclusion that, okay, now a lot of my energy is going into this aspect rather than thinking about the pairings. And I am probably, until Thorbjorn gets here, I will probably have to focus on communicating with him and making sure that I know where he is and when he's going to be here. So I said to Anders, okay, I am currently distracted psychologically. So I wish for you to take care of the pairings for the next round.
Wow.
Because you can focus entirely on this, whereas I have to think of the other situation.
Yeah. Wow.
This was
this was before you got to the tables? Was this before you got to the tables, or was this at the table?
No,
this was during breakfast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So like half an hour before we were gonna be at the tables.
Yeah, at 8:45, I think I contacted Gil and asked. I explained the situation. I said that we have a player who might be a bit late coming in from Sweden, and Gil just said, "Well, I mean, the round clock doesn't start until 9:30. So if he's not here by 9:30, we'll start his clock then." But it we did have quite a bit of time, and then I think that's a testament as well to Huggy's leadership, is him recognizing and realizing that right now my energy needs to be focused elsewhere, and I need to delegate. which is something he has done well. I would say that for most of the pairing processes we as a team have all been participating anyway.
Mm.
But it was just a matter of who is doing the mechanical aspect of the pairing process.
Mhm.
And then the Spain match was delayed a bit for other reasons. So, and Torbjörn actually arrived right on time anyway. He came into the hall at 9 o'clock sharp.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it didn't end up mattering.
nice.
But I do believe that the idea that my head needs to be in this, my head is right now not in this,
Right.
is one of those things that you need to recognize.
Yep.
And then sort of prepare for. And the fact that we were also like, we're so well oiled together
Mhm.
that we know each other's matchups, we know each other's
Yep.
play styles, we know what we need, we know what types of players we are. All of this, I think, contributed to us being a standout team in that
Mhm.
regard,
Mhm.
and being
Yeah.
able to know everyone's sort of strengths and weaknesses is probably one of our biggest strengths, if not the biggest strength.
I completely agree, and I've been thinking about this a lot for the last 24 hours. If you would have taken the exact same 160 players or so and made a singles event out of it,
Right.
I'm definitely not sure that any of us five would be the winner. But as a team, we were strong.
Mhm.
So we covered each other's weaknesses very well, and as Anders formulated in text earlier today, I'm going to read out his quote because it's in English. A certain amount of luck is involved in winning a solo tournament because you can't dodge specific matchups, and there is a fair chance dice will have a great impact on at least one of your games. This is somewhat eliminated in team tournaments, as you can have a few dodges, and it's extremely unlikely that dice will fail all of your team
Yeah.
once.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just I find it a very interesting example of how the team format can change the structure and flow of the game, and also what other factors come into play in a team environment.
Yep.
And I am a firm believer of that psychological factors matter a lot in gaming, because if you are calm and collected, then you are less likely to make mistakes. I myself, during my games, I was very focused on drinking enough water. I drank, I think, at least 2 bottles per game.
Yeah.
Wow.
And every time that it was not my activation, I tried to remember to sit down, take a sip of water, relax, lean back, and smile a little bit, because that affects your body in a way that makes you calmer, makes you feel like you are more like you're in control of the situation and relaxed when you're inside it. And I also do believe that when your opponent sees you doing this, they are not going to think that you're nervous. Maybe they even get a little bit nervous when they see how calm you appear to be. So that was something that I was trying to stick to for all my games.
Yeah.
And then another important thing, which is also something that I was trying to be very strict about, not letting players who were still playing know the
Yes.
result of the
Yes.
ended games.
Absolutely.
Yes, even when we had 3, we already got 3 victories, because I wanted everyone to feel that they played their best game. I wanted everyone to feel that their games were meaningful. And if you know that your team has already won, I believe that you are automatically bound to like release the gas
That's
for
right.
a little,
You take your foot-
just a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
take your foot off the gas just a little bit.
Yep.
And I think this might be a big reason that we never went less than 4-1 in any round. We went 4-1, 5-0, 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. And
Jesus.
I'm also very glad to see that none of us lost more than one game. So we had 4 players going 4-1 and 1 player, Torbjörn, going 5-0. So everyone contributed. No one had to be like carried by the team. So that is something that makes me extremely happy as captain, and that everyone contributed in a meaningful way.
How did?
And
Oh, go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, it says it worked like a well-oiled Swedish machine. Just 2 things to some of the things you said, Huggy. Yeah, if you're looking at the thing you said about if you guys were playing in a singles tournament, you probably wouldn't have won. I mean, well, Torben might have been in with a shot going 5-0, because if you look at the stats, when you just said your score, out of the 12 players who went 5-0, Torben was the only one, and the rest of you went 4-1. So there was 11 players on a team who didn't win, who went 5-0. And then as a team, you still performed better because of all the things you said.
And I think
it's a very different format with a team compared to a solo tournament. And the thing you said about relaxing, sitting down and doing, I mean, I played tournaments in 35 degrees Celsius, very warm environment, everybody's sweating and stuff. Between every game, what I did, I went to the toilet and I put cold water on my head, the back of my neck, washing all the sweat off and taking, because you know you get a heat bubble and you can't think. You wash all that away, cold water, and you come out again and you breathe, you got air and everything. You come out and you feel fresh like it's you just started the day. And you sit down, you can think and you clear, and your opponent's standing there sweating and you're like, yeah, I'm already ahead, I'm good. And then you just sit down, relax, and then let him mentally go insane, and you're just like, yeah, I got this.
What do you say, Anders?
I think fatigue is a thing, especially in a big event.
Yeah.
Now we had a quite relaxed schedule with 3 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday, sure, but it's still a ton of people, a lot of pressure, much is at stake. But just such a thing as like try to not stand up more than you actually need, because that causes you to be tense. And get more tired in your legs, and you get this like small pain, and after a while, all those small stuff are things that risk impacting your decisions negatively. So, and this game has such small margins that if you can grab those extra 5 to 10% of advantage against your opponent, that can very well be the small deciding factor. Also, how you react to dice rolls, the list goes on. Psychology is a thing, especially in a team environment.
All right, Anders, let me hear your thoughts.
I think, so going back to the psychology of dice rolls, I've made the poker analogy a few times, and I think it's apt here as well. So Marvel dice can notoriously be very swingy. And one of the things you can do here is you can make the correct decision, and like you can make the correct decision that is statistically the correct decision with quite a long shot, and it can blow up in your face because of the dice. And being able to sort of go to that coping place of, I knew I made the right call here, it didn't work out, what do I do now?
Right.
Is one of the main skills, I believe, of Marvel. As Huggy once put it, Marvel is not a dice about probabilities, it's about maximizing when you spike.
Yeah, it's not. I usually say this is not a game about averages. It's about timing of spikes.
Yeah, that's
and whiffs.
So. And I think our biggest strength as a team is probably the fact that we came from other games and we are so used to doing the prep work that like we had the Google Docs document, or the Google Sheets document, where we had the matchups listed. We knew who didn't want to face certain players. We knew who wanted to face certain players, and our main sort of key thing was making sure that as few players as possible got one of the so-called red matchups. And red matchups in MCP is probably not that bad. It's not something like War Machine where it could be 20% versus 80%. It's maybe, I don't know, 59 versus 41%, something like that. And that's not a big difference. But when you're doing these sort of, like, you're chasing the small percentages that will eke out the advantage at the end. If we get 5 matchups where we have 52%, we're happy with that, because that means we have the small edge, so that even if dice goes bad in one game, we can probably, the law of averages, like we can probably eke it out in the other games. And we're happy with that. And I would say that maybe save the final. I think we quote unquote won at pairing stage in every single of our matchups. And I think we did well enough in the finals as well. We did make a slight mistake in not checking the tables beforehand and choosing to pick tables more than picking matchups. And if we'd realized that the tables were as similar as they were, we should have picked matchups. But we didn't. So that was the small sort of thing where we slightly messed up. But we also noticed that we came up against teams and they were teams with good players, like very good individually skilled players. But they said they were like almost looking at our lists for the first time, and we were like, we've been looking at your lists for the past month. And we had prepared, so the pairing process was often they put something out, we thought for a little while, put something out, and then they went into the tank for a long time. Well, we knew exactly, like, we knew that whatever they drop now, we knew what we're going to be dropping, we know which table we're going to be picking, so we were sort of confident in our pairing process. And being able to eke out those small advantages at every point really helps the final game state, so to speak.
So let me ask you both then. Okay, make your last point then. I want to start wrapping up.
Yeah, I can add to that when we did the color coding, we used green for like a great matchup, yellow for like average. So most matchups were marked yellow, and red bad matchup. And what we meant by bad matchup, like Anders said, all matchups are playable in MCP, but in some matchups you have to adapt your play style in order to face the particular opponent, and that can cause you to like move away from your preferred play style in a negative way. So that's what I meant by red. And I also encourage the players to, when they color coded their specific matchups, not to try and analyze the matchup in a vacuum, like theoretically Guardians are good against Web Warriors. I want you to analyze, okay, what is my experience playing with Web Warriors into Guardians? How often do I win? How many times have I played this matchup? Do I feel comfortable playing this matchup? I was, for instance, I have played at least 50 games into Cabal Malekith. So all my Cabal Malekith matchups, there weren't many of them, but they were all green, because I know exactly how that matchup works. And even though it should be perhaps be a yellow in a vacuum, it's green for me because I know it very well. So try to individualize the matchups more than trying to like analyze them objectively, so to speak, because I don't think that's possible.
That was the interesting inverse of that.
Because you play your list one way, it might look very similar to like most players play it, but you have some other tricks or stuff you do in that list. We all are slightly different. You have one change of one character, and that means you play your list 20% different than some others. So that means some of your matchup would be way better than other things would do on paper. Because this is a 55-45, but for you it's actually a 55-45 in your advantage because you're doing something different than everybody doesn't see, and that's kind of throwing for a loop, and it gives you a dark horse advantage.
Yeah, and there's no better feeling than when you can prove the internet wisdom wrong by doing something slightly differently than what you're supposed to be doing, so to speak.
I think being confident in the matchups and being confident in what is my opponent trying to do. Knowing that is one of the key strengths. So people, when you come from a game like War Machine, you practice your one list for half a year before you go to an event, because there's so many interactions and things you need to keep tap on.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been a proponent for playing as many different things as possible in MCP, because then you have a better sense of the game in general. And that will improve your overall game knowledge in MCP, because so like if I'm going up against X-Men, I know what they are trying to do. I know exactly what it is they're trying to do. I know what they're trying to achieve, and I can look for ways to stop what they're trying to do. Same thing if I'm going up against Web Warriors or Avengers. I know that I probably shouldn't KO that 2-point model so that Sam gets to move Hulk up to stagger smash my Malekith. That these sort of things are important lessons that you learn by taking on the other side and playing the other perspective and playing different things.
I've actually learned a lot of different armies by actually trying to play that list. List I've had trouble with. Let's try and play him and get a feel for myself. What is that make him work? So I can get an insight into how do I change my game plan to beat that list. And I also like to play my list into unfavorable matchups. That was more in War Machine, because where there was different things. But I would come to a game night, and the list I brought is really on paper shit into my opponent's list. But I thought, let's play it anyway, because then I might find some new tricks in my list.
Hell yeah.
Different way. I can't play the normal way.
Right.
I need to do something else. So I gotta do something different. I mean, playing Space Rules against Dark Eldar, I gotta shoot more instead of fight, because I can't catch him. And same here. If they're pushing me away, I need to find another way of activating later, coming in, or killing more stuff, and just finding different ways of using your list. If you come up against that matchup, you think on paper I'm gonna lose, so I need to do a new game plan. And sometimes, playing the opponent list, you get the insight of doing, okay, I got it.
All right, let us. With all that in mind, I just want to hear from Anders and Huggy Bear. What was it like then, going into that fifth match when you realized you were in the finals?
Huggy, you take it away first.
It was obviously awesome, because after we beat Spain and had 4-1, at least I felt that, okay, now no matter what happens in this game, we will probably be second place, and that is a very, very good result, and we can be proud of our achievement no matter what happens here.
Right.
With that said, only focus on the next game, disregard context. Now we try to win this game. So
maximum effort.
Maximum effort on this task in particular. So bringing that mentality with us, I think, at least I can only speak for myself. Feel free to fill in, Maris, but I didn't feel like it was a final. I felt like this is just another game.
Yep.
Just the next game.
Just the next game. And I think that, I at least I tell myself that was because of the team mentality, that one game at a time, disregard context, just focus on the next task at hand. We managed to... this was the game where we sort of screwed up our pairing process slightly. We won priority and elected to pick 3 tables rather than 3 matchups. But in hindsight, we should have looked closer at the tables and realized that all of these tables are actually pretty good for Brotherhood, because we had a strategy in the pairing that if we are the team to put forward a player first, we usually put forward Torbjorn, because he was the most versatile. He had basically his only reds were basically Guardians and some outliers that were quite rare. So that means we could expect that they put forward Guardians, and something else. And then Thorbjörn picks the something else. And then we put forward our 2 Guardians answers. If we were the ones to... Yeah.
Which was usually X-Men and our Guardians.
Yes, exactly. Björn was really successful in his Guardian's mirror.
Okay, but let's leave that for Rich's show. I just want to understand the psychology that went into it. So it sounds like the important thing was to try to isolate the situation you were in to merely what was the battle in front of you, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, and since we had a clear idea that we would rather pick tables in general than pick matchups, because most of our matchups are okay. We noticed that we saw very few teams where we had multiple reds. So that made us decide that we can probably work around these slight issues. So focus on grabbing advantages on tables instead, because we do have a shield player, namely myself, and a brotherhood player, namely Anders. Anders like dense tables. I like shallow tables. So our plan for when putting 2 players forward early was put forward me and Anders, because if they pick me, we get to pick tables and we put it on the dense table so that we block that so that Anders can't end up on that.
Yeah, you mean the non-dense table?
Shallow table,
yeah.
A
Shallow table, yeah. And if they pick Anders, we just put them on the densest table possible so that Magneto can have a field day.
And yeah, go for it. If you had anything else.
That was.
So, but how did you the tactics? Rich will get into. I'm more interested in the psychology. How did you guys manage the tension?
I would say one of the big things is this was a clock event, and this was so nice because I am responsible for my own time. And without going into detail, I can say that my finals game was pretty stressed, and I noticed on the table next to me, Huggy got absolutely blown away by Cosmic Ghost Rider rolling extremely hot. So that part sort of stressed me. And then I felt that I'm also in a pretty tense situation. At the end of round 2, I was down 4-12 on my opponent.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Holy crap!
I was very, and then I was like, well, I have so much time. So whenever it was my turn, I allowed myself to sit down and actually ponder my next move.
Cool.
I got into the tank, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So for me, the fact that we didn't have a round timer that anyone could accuse me of, I mean, I was down, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway, but we didn't have a round timer so that anyone could accuse me of like trying to slow play or dragging things out or whatever it might be. The fact that I was responsible for my own time and I knew I could take this time to figure out the next move and find my out. And spoiler, I did find my out. And it ended up being a big deal because I had to react to 2 big spikes that happened to me. And being able to sort of go into tank mode and like, how do I switch this from making stupid decisions because his dice were hot in these 2 situations? How do I switch this into me being able to take this home?
Right.
And I really had to find my sort of footing and find the outs I had, and the outs played out well enough. And I think because I noticed my opponent was getting stressed when the tables were turning, and he was a very gracious opponent, and he was very he was almost apologetic when the dice turned up in his favor at the start of the game. He's like, I'm sorry, I know how bad this feels. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's part of the game. It's all fine.
Yeah.
And I felt equally sorry for him when the table sort of turned. But I had to find a way to not I had to find a way for the table to be able to be turned and not just give up where I was.
Yeah.
And I think that was.
You know what we usually say when we comment on games, Norbert?
That's right. Never give up.
Never give
Never
up.
give up.
Never give
Yeah.
up. Not an MCP. An MCP,
No.
anything is possible until the bitter end.
Yeah.
But it is a true show of good game and sports that when you actually apologize for your hot dice.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. People roll hot dice and you're like, I'm sorry. I was like, well, it's just a dice.
Yeah.
You can't do anything. You just be happy you roll well.
It's
gonna
just the universe. I mean, sure, the guy actually, had the dice in hand and rolled it, but I mean, he seriously had almost literally no control over what those results are, right? I mean, aside from letting go of the dice.
I want to say all of my opponents throughout all of the event has been very gracious. They have been very. There have been no like foul play or anything. Like they have been stellar opponents, great sportsmanship. There's been nothing questionable going on, and like very very nice experience. And none of them have raged or anything about dice. It has always been like, oh, I'm sorry. That didn't go my way. I guess I'm screwed. which is I think the mentality you have to have, because otherwise you're gonna go insane.
The judge
I can only echo that sincerely, and I in several of our games, I don't think our opponents were sour for losing even more, not more than 10 seconds until they came up and just congratulated us on the victory. And that was obviously a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, you count on that.
Yeah.
Because if it's a cheap win, nobody's happy, right? It's
Exactly.
only the worthy opponent that matters when you win.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Sorry, Gil.
Just want the thing you said about the electing tables for when you're playing on the final table, because the one thing we talked about earlier with the Friday night change the tables around, the one row that got hit the most was actually row 1 where you played the final. Never got to fix it. And that's the one, to be honest, if you look at it in round 5, that's the one where the table should matter. So that was a thing, but that's a thing it's on my notes for fixing for next year. Absolutely.
All right, excellent. Well, look, I want to thank my guests here tonight. Gil Sarapi, the head organizer for the event. Oh, you have
one more thing, Norbert.
Yeah, okay, Huggy. Go ahead.
Yeah, which was is not about our WTC achievement. It's about our streams, Norbert.
Okay.
Because one of the coolest and most emotional things I experienced during this event were all of those people who came up to me, probably you, definitely you as well, Norbert, and just said, thank you so much for doing these streams. I was blown away by all the appreciation that was showered over us. And I would just like to say from my heart, thank you so much. This is the reason we do it. This is the reason we will keep doing it. And love you guys.
Yeah, 100%. Same thing happened to me, actually, Huggy Bear. And I was on tears almost every time somebody would say these things. They said so many nice things. And it wasn't just like, thanks for the stream. They told me how it affected them, why it mattered, and why they enjoyed it. And so it was really emotional for me as well, because I was overwhelmed by the event in the first place. And so having then these individual stories told to me that led up to the event, it's just mind-blowing for me.
Absolutely. I would like to, if I can, thank all the players who attended. And also a lot of the plus ones. I only had fantastic feedback stories. The judge calls we had to make was either very simple calls, so that was nice and easy for us, or actually interesting calls.
Yeah.
And every call we made is like we come over is a measurement of cover or in range, and it's very tight. I had one where I had to measure range, and it was so tight. I put the stick in. It didn't push any of the models, but it just went snug in and touched both of them. I was like, yeah, it's in range. And I put the stick out, and both of them just went, okay, and carried on.
Yep.
I mean, twice I had a rule against one of the Danish player, which is one of my best friends, one of the twins that kept me going. And both the rulings went against him, and all he said was, okay, and then just carry on playing. I had nothing but happiness and enjoyment, and everybody just accepted things when it's good, and everybody was friends. I mean, yeah, I'm getting emotional, but yeah, all the players gave me a fantastic experience. This is why I want to do these things. I do have surprises for next year's WTC. I'm talking to some players about some things we might want to add, and we're going to talk about that. And actually, Norbert, you and me, and Pat, and some others going to talk about that later. And to answer some of the question in the chat, yes, we would absolutely love to go to 64 teams next year. So we're not limiting ourselves at 34. If it means we're only going to go to 40, 45 or 46 teams, we will, but I will shoot for an even number. We do have space. We could add 40% more gaming space to the hall.
Mm-hmm.
So 64 teams is not a problem. We need 10% more space to do 64 comfortably with the same space. So we have more than enough space to do 64. I mean, if we get to one point like we used to do with War Machine, where we could do 64 teams and a 64-man solo,
Right.
I would be ecstatic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the guys at AMG is gonna love me and send me everything we can do to do this event. We might actually have some studio guys coming. I don't know. I will talk to them. And hopefully I have
Gil, on the other side of that coin, how many teams do you need of strictly, because we had a joint event with War Machine this time around. How many teams from MCP do you need to make the event happen? A minimum.
32.
It needs to be 32. Okay. I think that's certainly achievable. I'm my reasonable guess is we'll get 48 teams. So, 50% increase.
I know the Canadians have already started talking about, hey, we need to be there next year. So
I talked to the Canadians.
Montreal Sharks tank are coming over.
Talked to some Canadians that could make it, and they are looking at, they want to send, the one I talked to, they want to send a minimum of 2 teams next year.
Yeah, that's lovely.
I'm waiting for the time where we get to be fully sold out and people's going to be on the ways. We're going to go back to every country gets 2 teams, and the third team is on a points list of who gets to put a third team in. When we get there, I mean, I'm going to be dancing up and down the street every day.
If you are interested in this event, whoever you might be, go to the official Marvel Crisis Protocol game Facebook page from AMG, and I have posted up tons of photos over the course of the event. As a matter of fact, here's some. I'll put them up on the screen as we're closing out here, so you can see exactly what it was that it was like, and you can just see the volume of people that were playing. Here's just even some from Friday night, and there you can see a bit about the main hall. And but I really want to show when everybody was standing there in the I do a lot of here we go. This was like when the hall was fully engaged with people playing and stuff like that. Sorry, let me move this over.
Oh, at one point when I looked Friday night, looking over the hall, I think 60% of the MCP and War Machine players was playing pickup games. 60% of the attendees at least was playing. It was almost a full tournament. 60 to 80% of the people attending was playing Friday night games at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the hotel was fantastic. I had a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning to check the speakers and the sound and the screen to make sure I had everything set up. That took me half an hour. And then I asked him, can we start filling up now? Because I brought the stuff in. Yeah, you can start. And there was already people loading in. It's like, can we let them in? Yeah, just bring them in. And then they said, yeah, you can let up. So from 11 o'clock, that's why when you showed up at 4, we almost set up. Because 11 o'clock, they said, yeah, we can put in. So I started loading the trailer in. Everybody came in. They're like, we just want to set up. So what we do, we just do, put all the maps out. These 3 rows is War Machine. These 4 rows is War MCP. Put all these maps out, spread them out. And then I load the terrain in and people just start doing it. I just had to tell them, I want you to put it up like this. And they're like, fantastic. And they just went. I did probably less than 10% of the setup.
Wow.
The rest, and the same with the packing down, I did maybe 20%. The rest was done by players. I barely had to ask. So again, to all the ones, I can't even mention all name, but to all the players who helped me set up and take it down, because I didn't have a team in place for that, but just players just stepped up. Again, thank you. It just made my day so much easier. It's fantastic.
That's great community. So look, gentlemen, anybody who's watching this, Rich Mid Gaming will be streaming on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. London time. That's 2 p.m. East Coast time in the United States. That will be on YouTube. His channel's Rich Mid Gaming, all one word, Rich Mid Gaming. Huggy Bear will be on that show with a number of other captains to talk more about the crunchy parts of the game than we did tonight. And then on Thursday evening, probably around 8 o'clock London time again, I will be interviewing members of my own team, which were the Reclaimed Colonials, as well as the other London team that was in the top 8, which is and higher than us. I think they were 6th. Whose name is the London B team. So we'll have members of both teams to talk a little bit about what their experiences were and the heartbreaks as we went to 3-2 and they went 4-1. So very close to the top. And so again, Rich Mid Gaming on Wednesday, 6 p.m. London time, and then my channel here again on Thursday at 8 p.m. So thank you to my guest, Gil Sarepi, master of the event, Huggy Bear, my dear co-host, and also the captain of the winning team, and Anders, another member of that winning team. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight and helping everybody understand what this was all about. Cheers, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody who was watching tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Please reach out to us if you want to see pictures. Go to the Facebook page. Like I said, Marvel Crisis Protocol has them all. And tell your friends about the event and convince them to come next year. Just gather 5 of your best friends and come have the best time of your life. With that, I'll sign off, everybody, and thank you. Good night.